Welcome to the Family Beacon podcast from Minnesota Family Council with hosts Grace Evans and Moses Brattrud. Stay informed on the top stories on life, family, and religious freedom. Get the facts, stand for truth.
Hello and welcome to the Family Beacon podcast from Minnesota Family Council. I'm here with Grace Evans. My name, of course, is Moses Brattrud. We're so glad that you have tuned in today. We are going to be talking about more issues that have to do with life, family, and religious freedom, just like we do every week. Make sure to subscribe to us on YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, wherever you get information about current events and news, or get our emails, mfc.org/subscribe. So here's what we're going to be talking about today. Grace is going to tell us about two stories from right here in Minnesota where the trans issue is causing people to say crazy things and do crazy things. So it's just another thing to watch and be aware of because of just the cultural power of this issue and how it causes people, even powerful people, to absolutely go to cloud cuckoo land, as they say.
Wow.
Then I'll be talking about the indictment of Donald Trump, the first ever indictment of a sitting or former president. We haven't talked really about this on the podcast, so we want to make sure to keep you guys informed on that and give you a balanced view of what is going on and what's going to happen next. And then finally, Grace will tell us about a new bill in Minnesota that will require that tampons be available for male students. So that's coming up. All that and more on the Family Beacon. Tell us what's going on at Mayo.
Yeah, really there are two different stories I want to tell you about. I guess we'll start with Mayo. So recently, Mayo retaliated against a professor who strayed from, quote, prescribed messaging on trans athletes. So they banned Dr. Michael Joyner, who is an anesthesiology professor, from speaking with journalists without the institution's approval, and they denied his annual raise after he made public comments on COVID-19 and gender that strayed from the institution's, quote, prescribed messaging again. That is according to a letter that the Mayo Clinic published by the Foundation for Individual Rights and Expression. So Joyner, this professor, discussed the physiological advantages that male athletes have over females in the New York Times in 2022 of May of that year, and criticized the National Institute of Health for discouraging blood plasma treatments for COVID-19. So he did both of those things. Of course, he was, the Mayo Clinic referenced both of these interviews, forbidding Joyner from, quote, offline conversations with reporters and requiring him to get that institutional approval for every single future media appearance.
Wow.
So in addition to that restriction, they're also imposing a 1-week unpaid suspension and denial of any salary increase at his next contract renewal. So that is happening here in Minnesota at Mayo, which is truly, truly crazy. Another thing I want to tell you about, too, here in Minnesota that just kind of adds to all of...
You know, if Dr. Joyner doesn't comply, you know what they're going to have to call him? Dr. Lever.
I thought he was going to say that. That's such a dad joke. Anyways, also, I mean, not surprisingly, Children's Hospital Minnesota is doing some other crazy things. They recently, you guys, equated transgender care for children to diabetes and cancer care.
Wow.
Shocking. I mean... So we've talked about Dr. Getford before, who says her pronouns are she/they, and she said in a human rights campaign video that pediatricians don't, quote, expect to be attacked for the care that they provide. So she, of course, is the lead director for Children's Minnesota Gender Health Program. And so she said, quote, if my child had diabetes or cancer or asthma, I deserve to be able to go to an asthma specialist to find out what things we can do to make it better. What things might make it worse. And if you have a child who is transgender, you deserve that same thing. She said that transgender care for children is, quote, just a real basic fundamental level of healthcare for kids who need it. Now, my thought on this was the same thing that a group recently tweeted out, a group that's against this. They recently tweeted out that it's called Gays Against Screamers, which is an organization that fights against the, quote, sexualization, indoctrination, medicalization of children. They said that the difference between, you know, this diabetes cancer, the difference is that if you don't treat a child's diabetes, they will die.
One small, tiny almost insignificant little difference.
Just, a little bit. Same with cancer. Whereas with transgender quote unquote care, actually that can lead to children's deaths. So wow, both of those things are happening in our backyard. I mean, just more virtue signaling, of course, from the wokeness. And it's just crazy how much more mainstream this seems to be becoming. I mean, I feel like every week it's what we're talking about. When we first started this podcast, Moses, I think that we were talking about abortion so much because I think that was really, that was on Dobbs had not happened, Roe v. Wade had not been overturned.
Right.
Everyone was talking about that a lot, and we still talk about that a lot. But now this is so breaking news, all this gender stuff. I mean, I was talking to our producer before we started filming that, all the children that are undergoing these gender transition procedures, et cetera, getting healthy parts of their body chopped off, getting hormones, they are the control group. They are the experiments. They're the rats in the cage. We don't have long-term data on this. And so all of this is very, very new. And that's why we're talking about this so much, because Moses and I can see where this is headed. We don't know all the implications, but we can see a lot of them. And ultimately, children are very hurt by this narrative. So we wanted to update you guys on that, especially since both those things are happening in our backyard. I will be telling you later about how Minnesota somehow would like to have tampons in boys' bathrooms. But before we get to that, Moses, please tell us about former President Trump's indictment.
Yeah, so now this is an issue, obviously, that's very different from some of the things that we normally talk about on the podcast. So it's a fair question. Why are we talking about Donald Trump's indictment? And I think it's important because, first of all, although this is one of the biggest news topics of this week, if you're watching the news, reading the news online, the perspective that you're getting on that is likely to be secular, unless you listen to some great Christian perspectives like Albert Mohler's podcast, The Briefing, or World Magazine, or something like that. If you're getting your news from a Christian source, then I hope that you're getting a fair and balanced view of this. But there, I said fair and balanced, which is, I think, was or used to be the motto for Fox News. And I think it is interesting, though, to take a Christian perspective on what's going on with former President Trump. So a little bit of it. So last week on June 8th, President Trump became the first former president to be indicted for federal crimes. In January 2021, he took a bunch of boxes of records with him. And the National Archives and Records Administration became aware of this in May 2021, a few weeks before he left office. It became clear that those documents were being stored at Donald Trump's residence and club at Mar-a-Lago in Florida and at Bedminster in New Jersey. And after repeatedly demanding the return of the documents from Trump's team, they did retrieve 15 boxes in January 2022, so almost a year later. And then they discovered that the boxes contained classified material, which led to the beginning of an investigation. And then there was an FBI search of Mar-a-Lago, which most of you probably remember, on August 8th of last year, in which the FBI recovered over 13,000 government documents, including 325 classified documents with some related to national defense secrets, covered under the Espionage Act. Then there's sort of like a special investigator named Jack Smith was put over this investigation, appointed by the Attorney General Merrick Garland. And it's kind of an interesting and slightly uncomfortable fact, or maybe more than slightly uncomfortable fact, that former President Trump is being prosecuted by the federal government, specifically by the Department of Justice, which is under the overall control of the Attorney General, Merrick Garland, who reports directly to President Joe Biden. Now, the whole idea of this special counsel, Jack Smith, him being appointed, is that he's supposed to be independent of the Biden administration. President Biden has not commented on the indictment of former President Trump. It really is supposed to look like this is not being politicized. So just last week on June 8th, the grand jury handed up the indictment, and I read the indictment. It was unsealed on June 9th, so anybody can read it. And you can read a summary, essentially, of the evidence that the prosecution has that Donald Trump and his body man, a guy named Walz, or I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing that right, conspired to hide these documents that they knew were classified. So there's 37 counts of against Trump, including willfully retaining national defense information in violation of the Espionage Act, making false statements, obstruction of justice, and conspiracy. And then 31 of the counts are retaining and failing to deliver national defense documents. And the really concerning thing is the nature of some of these documents. According to the indictment, they include documentation of U.S. nuclear weapons, foreign military attacks, plans, capabilities, and effects on U.S. interests, foreign nuclear capabilities, foreign support for terrorist activity, communications with foreign leaders, U.S. military activities, and White House daily foreign intelligence briefings. So you can read the indictment for yourself again. One thing that's, so a couple things that we don't know precisely what is in these documents because, of course, they're classified, but we can speculate that some of them probably have to do with some of the most imminent military threats to the United States, such as from that posed by the country of Iran gaining nuclear weapons, or the threat posed by Russia or China and their nuclear and conventional attack capabilities. And also we know from discussions that President Trump had that were secretly recorded that some of the secret documents have to do with American military plans for attacking a foreign country. So it's very extremely top secret plans that the Department of Defense drew up for how and why and when we would attack a certain foreign country or multiple foreign countries if it came to that. So that's really, I think everyone can agree that that's really concerning that those documents would have gone missing.
Absolutely.
That the National Archives wouldn't know where they were. Now, one thing I've heard, and I'm not sure if former President Trump has said this or if people defending him, I know people defending him have said this, but they've said that he could have declassified these documents during his time of office or even retroactively. People are saying this. And so I think there's 2 points to be made there. The indictment includes recordings of President Trump's explicitly saying that he did not declassify these documents, so he admits not doing that. And then also, based on the nature of some of these documents, we're talking about a relatively small number of documents out of the 13,000 total documents that were seized by the FBI in August. But just a few of those documents had extremely sensitive information, some of the most sensitive information that exists in this country or anywhere else, because we're the most powerful nation on earth, and we have the best intelligence system in the world. So we know a lot of things. I say we. I really mean, the federal government. You can say whether that's a good thing or not, that the federal government knows so much. So I wanted to share with you, some statements from both sides of this argument on why, whether or not former President Trump should have been indicted. He has been invited to a lot of things, including my birthday party. And he didn't come, which
But you guys are such best friends.
Yeah, and that's why. Yeah, no, exactly. I'm still hurt about that.
He gets hurt really easily.
Yeah. Thank you.
That's why I get him balloons every day.
What a picture that is of our office. It's just, you guys can't see, but behind the camera, there's just a ton of balloons and they're unused. They're just floating in the ceiling, waiting to just pop.
Rainbow colored.
Yeah. Oh no! Stop.
We're retaking the sign.
Oh, reclaiming the rainbow. Yeah.
Yes.
There you go.
There you go.
So on June 8th, Trump said the corrupt Biden administration has informed my attorneys that I have been indicted, seemingly over the box's hoax. And he's calling it a hoax, but
what evidence does he have, though?
I've seen the pictures. The FBI actually did take 13,000 government documents back from Mar-a-Lago, and you can look at the indictment and you can see the pictures of those documents being stored in a bathroom. I don't, on the stage of a little
in a ballroom.
In a ballroom.
What I don't get is it's just you all know I'm not President Trump's #1 fan, but I don't think he's a not smart guy in general. I think he's fairly smart. This just seems so unwise, honestly.
Yeah.
Why on earth, if you're the former president of the United States and you take 13,000 documents, of course someone's going to figure out they went missing. And if they're classified documents, you're going to get in trouble. I don't know why he didn't just make copies. I don't know.
Well, that would have also been bad.
Yeah, but that just seems like then people wouldn't notice that they disappeared.
Interesting. I wonder.
He should have hired me for some advice. No, just using.
Yeah.
I would never do that. I'm just very confused because that just seems like he would anticipate that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I think that's a good point, Grace. And he certainly didn't anticipate losing the election. He thought he was going to win. People were telling him he was going to win. And even after the election, as we all know, he claimed to have won the election, and there were concerns raised about voter fraud, which, I certainly still have some questions in my mind about that, but not to the extent that it would have actually changed the outcome of the election. And even late into January of 2021, President Trump was hoping that he would not have to leave office, that somebody was going to basically come in and fix this for him. That's what he asked Vice President Pence to do. He asked him not to certify the Electoral College results on January 6th, and we all know how that turned out. So I'll give you two different views on this from Republican politicians, and you can choose which of them or neither of them you wish to believe or listen to. So there's a Republican representative from Florida, Byron Donalds, and he said that the classified document case against former President Trump is an example of political prosecution. Quote, "What you see here is the political prosecution of Donald Trump because former officials of our government who did not have declassification ability and were not the head of executive branch, they did significantly worse things with material and classified material," Donald said Tuesday on CNN. And that is why the American people look at this, they think it's disgusting, and they think it's a two-tier justice system simply to go after President Trump. And there's obviously, some truth to that. It's, Hillary Clinton has been obviously in a lot of hot water over classified documents, but especially at least her emails. And then even President Joe Biden had documents that he was not supposed to have from his time as vice president. Now, to be clear, I don't think that they included nuclear secrets. I don't think I ever heard that being alleged about the documents kept by Secretary Clinton or Joe Biden when he was a former vice president. I'm not swearing that was true. And here's another perspective. Oh, go ahead.
I was just going to say, I also don't think it makes what President Trump did better. It just shows, other people have done it and they haven't been prosecuted. Now, that's a problem with our legal system. Like if they haven't been found guilty or charges haven't been pressed when they should have been, I don't think it makes what President Trump did better. It just makes it less out of the blue and abnormal.
Right. That's a really good point. So as an elected official in high office, you are just barraged with these documents. Like the president got daily intelligence briefings every day of his time in office, I believe, unless he was on vacation or something. Even then, I don't know. I don't know if presidents still get that daily briefing when they're on vacation, but that's extremely important. Decisions that would be made at that type of briefing would be, okay, we know where Osama bin Laden is. Mm-hmm. Should we execute the attack that would kill him? Or in a case of something that President Trump did, it was that Iranian general, Qasem Soleimani, Trump had to make the call. Do we kill him in Baghdad, I think it was, and we did, and Trump was extremely proud of that. So some of this extremely sensitive information that presidents get is, we just don't want that to be up for grabs. We don't want that to be stored in the bathroom in Mar-a-Lago. I think everyone agrees that that should not be done. And
also, I saw I've been reading different stories on this, that he was asked to give up, once they found out, he has classified documents, he was asked to give back all the classified documents, and he gave back only some of them, and then they raided again or something, and they got all of them. And so once the nation, the national defense, whatever, once America's like, yo, and then you withhold more classified documents. Guys, it's just not smart. Yeah. That's what I'm trying to get at. I just don't know what's going on in his brain.
I think that's really good. If you or I, and let's be honest, it's more likely to be Grace. If Grace was being investigated by the federal government,
why would that be more likely?
For various reasons. But if you didn't pay your taxes, or if you had conspired to commit
someone professional do my taxes.
Well, maybe you tell them to commit federal crimes. I don't know. But the point is,
I'm telling you, this wouldn't be smart, so I would not do this.
No, yeah, but you'd be smarter about it. You'd probably get away with it. But my point being that if the IRS says, "Hey, give us our stuff," you, as a smart, intelligent person, would give them what they want because it would be worse for you if you didn't.
I know, that's what I don't understand.
Yeah.
It makes zero sense. It's like, okay, well, did someone set him up? I don't know. It's weird.
Interesting. Is that what people are saying?
I haven't heard that take. I mean, I just don't get why he would think that would be a good idea. Like, does he think that, because he's Donald Trump, blah, 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 no one can touch him, blah, blah, blah? Is that the spiel?
Well, he definitely thinks,
Yeah.
as a president,
I guess
as
he
a
can
former
buy his
president,
way out of anything, he thinks.
Well, yeah, and as a former president, he may have a right to think that, the ordinary rules don't apply to him. Again, this is the first time in history of this country when a former president has been indicted of federal crimes. It's never happened before. So I'll share a perspective from Nikki Haley. Now, it's very worthwhile to remember that Nikki Haley is running against Donald Trump, so her perspective is biased. But that being said, I think she has some worthwhile things to say. If this indictment is true, if what it says is actually the case, President Trump was incredibly reckless with our national security. She went on to say, however, that she thinks that this is possibly politically motivated. Quote, "Two things can be true at the same time. One, the Department of Justice and the FBI have lost all credibility with the American people, and the getting rid of just senior management." The other thing being true at the same time would be that President Trump, in theory, put our military in danger by keeping this information and by not storing it in a secure way. So this week, President Trump made his first court appearance in Miami. Interesting dynamic is that the trial looks likely to be in Miami, and the judge is a Trump appointee, at least at this point, unless that changes. So that's a very interesting dynamic. I don't think, again, because the president has never been indicted under federal charges before, it has never happened that a judge who was appointed by said president is now in charge of a criminal investigation into that president.
Do we, Moses, have an idea on the timeline of this? Or is that just totally depends on the evidence and then how that's backed up and stuff? Or do we expect it to happen pretty fast?
I think that they want a speedy trial.
Okay.
Because
he needs to run or not run.
Well, he is running for president, as you know. I think the question is,
if he's guilty, though, then he would be able to be elected.
Oh, yes, he can. Even if he's put in jail, he can. There's nothing in the Constitution that would keep him from being.
You can be president from the jail.
Yep.
I had no idea that was legal, guys.
Yeah. Again, this has never happened before. We are in completely uncharted territory, which is one of the things that I think.
Isn't there legislation about how you can't be a representative or a senator, though, if you have criminal charges?
I'm not sure about that, but certainly I know that, and because people have discussed this scenario, President Trump could be imprisoned and could still win re-election. In fact, this has happened before. Eugene Debs was a socialist candidate for president back in the teens or the 20s of the last century, and he was in prison, but his name was still on the ballot, and he got 1 or something like 3% of the vote, and it was that was a lot of votes for someone who was in prison and who was not from one of the major parties. If President Trump was in prison, I think we could safely say that he would get a lot more votes than this other socialist candidate. I'm not saying that he would win the election from prison.
I do not think he would.
Is it possible? The sort of thing. What's sad, I think, to me, is that just this whole wrangling over, in a lot of other countries, it's kind of like you want to, if you're the president or the head of state, you want to stay in power because for one thing, that if you lose an election or if you just lose in a coup or whatever, that the people who come after you are going to put you in jail. So this happened to a ton of people in let's say Brazil. So in Brazil, the former president, President Lula, was convicted in this huge criminal investigation. And then we had Jair Bolsonaro, who was this friend of Donald Trump. But then there was another election, and Lula won the election. So he came back from being convicted. He wasn't imprisoned at the time that he won re-election, but he came back and has got another term. So, and now there's legal proceedings against Bolsonaro. And so it just makes the US feel a little bit like Brazil in terms of the law and order thing. And no offense to anyone from Brazil or of Brazilian extraction who's listening, but the United States and Brazil have traditionally been operating on out of a different playbook when it comes to legal affairs. Okay, folks, that's the last thing I'll say on that topic. It's something that we really should follow closely. And as Christians, we absolutely should pray that justice will be done. I think it can even feel like justice can't be done. Like it feels like, well, former President Trump should not have done this. And yet also, it seems clear that this investigation and all of the other investigations into Trump may be politically motivated, certainly are politically motivated for some of the people involved. Mm-hmm. What an easy chance to put one over on your political opponent. So we should pray for former President Trump and pray for the people investigating him, that the truth would be known, and also for our nation, that our nation would heal from this, what is obviously a time of deep divisions, and be able to move forward. So finally, Grace, please tell us about this story. Again, a more local story, which in theory might have more effect on schools and so forth in Minnesota than some of the other things we discussed today.
Yeah, let me tell you about it. This will be pretty quick, Moses, and then you can share that verse with our audience as we close out. But the education finance bill that Walz signed into law in late May of this year increases spending for K-12 education by almost 11% over the next 2 years for a total of $23.2 billion, which, I mean, that doesn't sound terrible on the front. I mean, I don't like our public education system. I don't think it's good. I will not be sending my kids there. But okay, that's not terrible. But what this bill language states, it includes that, quote, the products must be available to all menstruating students in grades 4 through 12. Each district must develop a plan to stock pads and tampons in bathrooms regularly used by male and female students and offer them free of charge. And that starts January 2024. That's when it comes into effect. This bill was sponsored by Representative Sandra Feist, it's Feist, who said, quote, not all students who menstruate are male, to which I say, if you're a boy, do you have a cervix? Do you have a uterus? Do you have a vagina? No, you cannot menstruate. You can't, because you're a man. You're a boy. Ridiculous. It really is ridiculous. And when anytime a woman says something like this, like my colleague in California has testified against a very similar bill in California, she went up and said basically what I said, and the representatives talked amongst themselves and were like, we just need to get over this fear-mongering and just this behavior that hurts gay people, it hurts trans people, and just against the well-being of them. It's just, wow. These are the facts. Only girls can menstruate. So Alliance for Period Supplies tweeted, they said, big news, Minnesota schools will now provide free period products to all students, which is ridiculous because guess what? Your male students do not need period products. They do not. You're throwing money away. They also tweeted, Happy Pride Month. Not all women have periods and not all people who have periods are women. The Alliance for Period Supplies is proud to support all people who menstruate as we continue our work to #end period poverty. And it is truly ridiculous. Literally, there is nowhere for a man to stick a tampon. There is nowhere for a boy to stick a tampon. There's no reason for them to wear a pad. I would be shocked if any boys, biological men or boys are going to be wearing them.
This is such a horrible use of taxpayer money.
I know. I'm like, okay, there are women in need who are facing unplanned pregnancies who need that money. There are single moms.
So put them in the women's bathrooms.
Yeah, please.
Instead of spending twice the money to put them in every bathroom.
Like, remember how they refused to make certain baby products tax-free?
Yeah.
It's like, well, guess what? You could use your budget for that. You could use your budget for a plethora of other things. So a lot of other things happening in Minnesota that we could try to fix. We don't need to throw tampons in boys' bathrooms. It's just so dumb. I cannot believe, honestly, that we live in a world that thinks that this is normal and good and, like, you're a hater and a bigot if you're a woman who stands against this. I saw recently, I was like scrolling through social media before we podcasted, and it was this college.
Do you frequently do that?
Yes,
at work?
I do because it's my job. And it showed up like this college, I think it was Harvard. The definition of like lesbian was.
Oh, I saw that.
You saw that?
Ahead, yeah.
You want to explain?
No, go ahead. J.K. Rowling tweeted about it.
Yeah, that's what I saw. It was on Twitter. Okay, let me pull this up quick, guys.
Just absolutely ridiculous.
And they're pushing this in our schools because now kids in schools are going to be like, oh my gosh, we I guess we need to wear a pad even though we're a boy and we don't bleed. I'm sorry, if you're a boy, I don't want you to have to wear a pad because they're not very comfortable. Okay, so it was Johns Hopkins University, excuse me. So this is part of their diversity and inclusion, gender and sexuality resources. They have an LGBTQ glossary. And so for lesbian, they define that. They said, quote, it's a non-man attracted to non-men, which is so dumb. I'm like, okay, so men, you don't need to define men apparently, but what you need to define is woman without saying woman. Like, what is a woman? A non-man. Oh, great. I just feel so uplifted and seen. Like, okay, a non-man attracted to non-men. Well, past definitions refer to lesbian as a woman who is emotionally blah, 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 attracted to other women. This updated definition includes non-binary people who may also identify with the label. It's just ridiculous. Why, thank you so much. You are a man and I am a non-man. It's just so dumb. So Rowling said, man, no definition needed. Non-man, formerly known as woman. A being definable only by reference to the male. An absence, a vacuum, where there's no manness. I cannot. It is beyond me, guys. The world is crazy. Keep speaking the truth. I mean, the thing is, one of the good things about this is, again, it just makes people like you and I and Moses and others seem so sane, seem so logical, seem so wise, because we're just saying, guess what? Boys can't have periods and they don't need a tampon. And that's what we're saying. And it's like, wow.
And a woman is something more than a non-man. You know, like that's the side we're on.
Yeah, it's just...
That's the page we're on.
It makes us look so good because they're going so crazy. Okay, right. Moses, go ahead and close us out with our verse for this week.
Yes. Yeah. So let's pivot from the insanity to a place of truth and to God's word for us. And this week, I'm going to read the second half of Psalm 34. This is a psalm of David. Oh, fear the Lord, you his saints. There is no want to those who fear him. The young lions lack and suffer hunger, but those who seek the Lord shall not lack any good thing. Come, you children, listen to me. I will teach you the fear of the Lord. Who is the man who desires life, and loves many days, that he may see good? Keep your tongue from evil and your lips from speaking deceit. Depart from evil and do good. Seek peace and pursue it. The eyes of the Lord are on the righteous, and his ears are open to their cry. The face of the Lord is against those who do evil, to cut off the remembrance of them from the earth. The righteous cry out, and the Lord hears and delivers them out of all their troubles. The Lord is near to those who have a broken heart and saves such as have a contrite spirit. Many are the afflictions of the righteous, but the Lord delivers him out of them all. He guards all his bones, not one of them is broken. Evil shall slay the wicked, and those who hate the righteous shall be condemned. The Lord redeems the soul of his servants, and none of those who trust in him shall be condemned. Just, one of my favorite psalms, this incredible message of God's goodness. And we know he's good because we can trust in him and because he gives all good things to those who seek him. And to those who depart from evil and do good, who seek and pursue peace. Those are the ones on whom the Lord's eye is. And the Lord's ear is open to their cry. So with every sense, the Lord is listening for our prayers, and he's listening for the prayers of the righteous. And the Lord hears, and the Lord delivers them out of all their troubles. And not only that, he's near to us when we have a broken heart and a contrite spirit. And although we have many afflictions, God delivers us out of all of them. So how does God redeem the soul of his servants? Through the blood of Jesus Christ, to purchase them away from sin and death. And I just think, wow, one of those Old Testament passages in which the gospel is just so clear. And so I thought that would be a encouraging note to end on, folks. Thank you so much for watching or listening to the Family Beacon podcast, where you can get the facts and stand for truth. Come back next week and it'll be another amazing, super cool episode. And thank you again for watching.
Thanks for listening to or watching this episode of the Family Beacon podcast from Minnesota Family Council. Subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts so you're up to date on life, family, and religious freedom. You can follow us on Instagram at MN Family Council and subscribe to us on YouTube to watch our content. Get the facts, stand for truth.